me 1 sec here. I gotta see if I can win this. I think it's a first. That's it, baby. We're Emerald, just like that, guys. This LC has made me think festival aren't so bad. True. True that. I got top 1,000 last festival and almost... Well, as you see, guys, I've hit Emerald finally. You know what that means? I don't have to play Legend Comp Round 2 anymore. And you know what that also means? I can now focus on some video making. So, from my poll results, from everyone that voted, thank you so much for voting on this. I know they didn't have the best results. I know I only had a few video ideas in here, sadly. But from what you guys have chosen, I will be going over what I would change based on the current state of CrossWorlds. Now, the changes that I'm going to provide are not just going to be gameplay-related changes. They might be fundamental changes, they might be cosmetic changes, they might just be quality-of-life changes as well. We will go section by section. I will provide a list of timestamps right here shortly for about 10 seconds. You guys can look at the timestamps, but I will try to go pretty quickly on these, try not to make the video too long. I don't want like a 50-hour video, you know what I mean? The goal is really simple. Hopefully we can have about a 30-minute video, nothing too crazy, nothing too long. But without further ado, guys, let's get into the quality of life changes that I would like to see in CrossWorlds. So, to start the section off really quickly with quality of life changes, I would just really like to see things such as some vehicle customization slot increases, maybe like 1 or 2 extra, so we can have a total of about 7 vehicle customization slots. I think this would be fantastic. It would open up a lot more savable vehicle customizations. It'd just be really nice overall, especially for people like me that like to have a bunch of goofy customizations. Next, I would like to talk about the gadgets. I would really like to see maybe 10 more not 10. I'd like to see 10 total gadget slots, not 10 more. Having 5 on its own, it feels very restrictive, and you have to constantly juggle your gadgets. With 10, I feel like it'd be really easy to have multiple on the ready whenever. Finally, for the last quality of life change, I would really like to see a TT friend leaderboard. I think it'd be really easy to implement. Maybe do the right bumper, just have it to be a friend leaderboard only, and it'd be really, really nice. Other than these quality of life changes, the only other changes I would like to promote would be cosmetic changes, these being adding more decal customization potential, specifically with us being able to overlap decals. Currently, we don't have so many decals to the point I think we could make like phallic decal customizations or anything bad of that nature, so I really think it'd be really nice to be able to set Joker's mask on top of Ichiban's face. I think it'd be really funny. And then also add another skin or two, or allow us to more easily add modded skins or overwriting our character models. I think this would be absolutely amazing, and it would open up the possibility for console players to also be able to use the mods as well, which would be really fantastic and just open up a wide door for all the modding community. Now I've gone over the cosmetic and the quality of life changes, let's go over to the real changes of the game that need to be gone over, which are the actual game changes. Now, this is going to be split up into a bunch of mini sections because just talking about only all the actual game changes is just quite ridiculous in one go. So we're going to first start off with something very easy, which is going to be the item changes. Well, easy, quote unquote. The item changes are going to be quite extensive, I feel like, but not too crazy compared to the fundamental changes of maps and things of that nature. So without further ado, let's get on to the items of the game and what I would do to change them. Items are one of the biggest problems with CrossWorlds currently, and Round 2 of Legend Comp has really solidified that mentality in not only my brain, but I think with everyone else currently. The items need some major changes handed to them, and realistically, there isn't going to be any major changes that are going to come to gadgets or other fundamental problems unless the items get changed. Now, we have one major issue, and that is Tornado. Ooh boy, Tornado. Tornado is one of the most fundamental breaking items in the entire game. There is a reason why Tornado is unironically one of the most hated items in the game, not just from a pro player standpoint or a high level player standpoint, but just in general. Think of it like this. Tornado does a massive AoE around you that can hit multiple players and is able to do 50 rings of damage per person hit. 50 rings is half of your ring total. Even if you have 130 rings, you're going under 100 guaranteed every time, which is unbelievable for a defensive item. Keep that in mind. This is a defensive item, not an attack item, a defensive item doing 50 rings of damage. To me, that is absolutely unbelievable, and that's not even fair at all. Genuinely, like, if I wanted to do 50 rings of damage, I should be hitting you with a level 3 fully charged bomb that explodes right on top of you. I should be doing 50 rings of damage if the item should impact you for 50 rings of damage, like King Boom Boo, or maybe like level 3 bomb, right? Like, I should never do 50 rings of damage with a defensive item. I think lowering Tornado's initial damage from 50 rings to 20 rings of damage is already a really good step, even if you keep the slowdown. If you want to completely dissuade anyone from using this hyper offensively just to hit people, you should also lower the slowdown. So instead of the slowdown being, let's say, because I don't know what the number is, but I'm going to roughly estimate it's about 80% slowdown, roughly. Instead of it doing 80% slowdown, why don't we make it to where it does about 50% slowdown and 20 rings of damage? You can still use this offensively, but it would disincentivize it heavily because it should be used in the intended means, which is to defend yourself against like slicers, weights, slime, gloves, things of that nature. I don't think Tornado should break weights personally, but for the sake of balance, especially because you can get slimed and weighted back to back, I think it's fine to leave that in if you lower the amount of damage it does from 50 rings to 20 and the slowdown is lowered from that rough 80% guesstimate to around like 50 to 60%. I do not think you should have both things. Like if you're doing 50 rings of damage, you should not be allowed to block weights, but if you do 20 rings of damage, it's fine to block weights as a defensive item. I think you need to weigh it out more fairly, because otherwise this item is the most problematic thing in the game, and it's super annoying. I've lost numerous races because someone break checks me right at the end of the finish line with Tornado, and then just drives off and wins. It is very annoying, and even just people using it for no reason, where they just randomly Tornado out of nowhere and just like hit you. Like, you literally watch 2 seconds later, boom, weights comes down and crushes them just because they decided to hit you for 50 rings of damage, and then they lose the race because of it. It's like, people do not need to be using Tornado in such a way, and I feel like the devs should incentivize the use of being a defensive item rather than allowing it to be an offensive item, personally. I really do think the duration of this item is completely fine. I think 3 seconds is very fair, but with that in mind, I think Tornado just lowering the slowdown and lowering the ring damage by a good amount, I think that would change it into be a much more healthy item for the game. Next, let's talk about another defensive item. Let's talk about Void Wisp. Oh boy, Void Wisp really makes me mad. This is because Void Wisp itself, if I'm correct, it lasts 5 full seconds, right? But because it's in your inventory for all 5 of those seconds, you are stuck with a dead slot item that's absorbing a ton of things around you, where no other defensive item does this. The only other item that hogs your inventory is Monster Truck, and we'll get to Monster Truck later, but Void Wisp holds your whole inventory hostage for 5 seconds. I think this sucks. This is a horrible thing because it makes Void objectively one of the worst defensive items to utilize in the game. Because let's say you're on the final lap, you have Void Wisp, and you have to pop it super early just so you can get to your Wisp or your Monster Truck or whatever. I feel like we should not have Void Wisp sit in the inventory if Shield and Tornado don't. I feel like you either have to make Tornado and Shield sit in your inventory, or you have to make Shield and Tornado sit in your inventory upon use, like Void Wisp is, or you have to make it so Void Wisp can be canceled by using another item after you use it. So let's say you use Void Wisp, right? And then I decide to use another item, right? Then it cancels it entirely. Or just make it like Tornado, where just you pop it and it's out of your inventory. Like, seriously, I don't think Void Wisp should be objectively the worst defensive item. It's one of the most cool items in the game, in my opinion, because it's one of the only 2 defensive items, because Tornado gets blown through by level 3 bomb. It completely blocks you from level 3 bomb, which is absolutely nice, and it should technically be a tier up above Tornado in that regard. But because it hogs your inventory, it's actually the worst defensive item in the game, and it sucks. So my only change, literally, just make it so it doesn't hog your inventory, or you can cancel it early so you can get to your items that are in the other slots of your inventory. I feel like that is already enough to make it a much better defensive item, and it's a much better change to the item itself to make it more healthy and more usable in multiple situations. Next, now that we've gone over the defensive items, let's talk about the speed items, and then we'll get to the offensive items. So to get started with the speed items, let's just start with a 100 ring. I'm not going to have any little special image for this, but basically, here's the only thing I would do with a 100 ring. Genuinely speaking, make a 100 ring be 10 individual 10 rings that you pick up in a chain rather than counting as one single ring. This would make it a much better item, especially for people that are using ring game boost in first place. It'd make it very awesome and very unique. It'd be like a mini Omochao. So like, instead of being able to take like long off-road with Omochao, you can only take short off-road, but you still get 100 rings total. I think that'd be really cool. It'd make it have a niche and make it really fun to use, instead of having it be like Ring Mercy, where you get hit and you literally get one single individual ring back, so you don't get a lot of boost or a lot of duration of the ring game boost. I feel like it'd just make 100 rings so much more unique of an item, and actually make it to where people want to pull it when they're in first place. Not only just to get your rings back to full, but also to be able to take some kind of off-road in case you get screwed on other items. Again, that is my thing. I think it might be too powerful at that point, so it may have to be toned back, but I do think it'd be a really cool change. Now, you can call me out and say that's stupid, but I think it would be awesome. Next, White Wisp and Triple Whites, again, no imagery for these. I think these are perfectly fair items. I think White Wisp shows up way too much in 9th through 12th place. I think single White Wisp is a little annoying to show up, like especially for me. I've rolled single White Wisp I think 4 or 5 times in multiple races in Legend Comp 2 because everyone's hard bagging Monster Truck, Laser, and Drill. And that's a good way to transition this. Let's talk about Monster Truck. Monster Truck is one of the most annoying items in the game, and I hate this item so much because of how obnoxious it is, but yet at the same time I love using it. So even though I hate this item, I really love using it personally because it has a lot of potential for off-road. It can literally blow through certain like obstacles in the off-road, like Ocean View. You can literally explode the stone pillars, and then you have the dinosaurs in Dino Jungle. You can literally, and Wonder Museum skeletons, you literally drive Monster Truck through it and all you hear is the dinosaurs just like go ooh from getting hit. It's the funniest thing ever and I love it. I think it's one of the most funny things in the game. I think Drill does the same thing, which is really, really funny. I think with Monster Truck, literally, here's what I would do. Make it to where the damage, keep it at 20, that's perfectly fine, but make the slowdown of the crush effect last shorter, and this is, I'll go back over this with the attack items with level 3 bomb. I think the crush state is way too strong. Now, granted, thankfully, it's limited to a couple items, but I do think, like, shortening it by, like, maybe 10 to 15%, something, not a ton, but just enough to make it feel a little less impactful on your race to where you just don't automatically lose because you got crushed. I think it'd be a lot better, personally, and make it a lot more healthier for all these items, because I know level 3 bomb, weights, and Monster Truck are items a lot of people dislike, and I really think like leave them with their damage amounts, but lower the amount of slowdown, because I think that would make it really nice for these items, and people wouldn't be that annoyed. I think another thing, there should not be like 4 or 5 Monster Trucks in play. I really do think Monster Truck should be limited to about 2 in play at any given moment, because Monster Truck, literally you'll have like 3 or 4 show up all at once, and then all of a sudden everyone just gets ran over, and it's really obnoxious. I think it's really stupid. I think limiting this would be really healthy for the game, especially because you have items like Slime and Dark Chow that are in the game that can force the Monster Truck usage, and I think that'd be perfectly fine. Genuinely, I think it'd be fair. Same thing with Slicer, it forces Monster Truck usage. So I think if you limit the item to 2, very fair in my opinion. Next, we'll go over Drill and Laser. I think Drill and Laser, here's my issue with Drill and Laser. Drill does 50 rings of damage when it hits you, and Laser is super strong and has many, and same thing with Drill. Both these have extension points that make them last way longer than they realistically should. And so I think what they should do, if they want to keep these extension points, I do think they need to change something about these items, and I think there are a couple things I would like to see change. One, I would like to see Drill and Laser go down to about 2 each. I don't think there should be 3 of them in play for everybody. I think 2 of them in play each is very fair. This means Dark Chow, Slime, and Slicers are very, very strong to counter people that are hard bagging these, which will force these to be used way earlier than intended. I also think Drill and Laser compared to White Wisp, Triple Wisp, and Omo Chow and Monster Truck, I don't think these should take off-road. Now, I might get a lot of hate for this, genuinely, but here's my thing. We had in patch 1.2.2, right? Or 1.2, whatever. In patch 1.2, we got the change to Laser and Drill to make it to where they didn't take certain off-road cuts. Now, I think it was pretty neat because this means you can't just automatically hard steal races from taking like Ocean View's off-road or Sand Road's off-road or Blizzard Valley's off-road, right? Where you just cut through these positions. Same thing with Chronos, right? You get to cut these off-road sections really hard with these items. If the off-road is so short to the point, like you can realistically bridge the gap, like on Chronos, right? I think it's fair. But I think like on longer sections of off-road, like Ocean View, East Stadium, Blizzard Valley, Sand Road, or like shallow off-road in a sense where it's not like super deep and there's only like a small bend around it, right? I think it shouldn't be able to take that because I think that should be reserved for Wisp, Monster Truck, Omo Chow, and 100 ring if the 100 ring change that I suggested would go through. This makes it to where Drill and Laser aren't nearly as mandatory to hard bag. You keep the strength of them being them taking the main road super fast and without being able to get hit, which is really nice to keep. But I think being able to take off-road with these, it causes a lot of people, especially with Drill, causes a lot of people to get hit randomly on off-road cuts, and it causes a lot of people to lose races unnecessarily. Because Drill, the biggest way to dodge Drill is being on the left or right, and with off-road, you can't dodge it if you're on the full right, and you have to take super wide lines to dodge it on the off-road normally, which I think is really stupid. I think Drill already should just be taking off-road, same thing with Laser. Like, again, they did make changes to make sure that they didn't take certain off-road cuts. I think this would be a lot more fair, genuinely. Again, same thing with lowering the amount down to 2, like I stated earlier. I think it'd be very fair. Granted, again, a lot of people might give me hate for this, but I think it really disincentivizes hard bagging to the point where you're mandatorily needing to get Drill and Laser, right? And it makes it to where like don't have to forcefully always get Drill Laser, and you can counterplay people that are hard bagging much easier, because like Triple Wisp and Drill is really strong, Triple Wisp Laser strong, like things like this. It's perfectly fine to have those in the game, but being able to bag Drill Laser or Drill Monster Truck and be able to automatically win races because you can take the off-road with Drill and the off-road with Laser on certain tracks, I think is a little stupid. I think reserve it for very shallow off-road spots like Kronos' end cut, right? I think that is very fair, but for the bigger off-road, I think just force it to go on the main road, or you have to have a wisp in your main slot, so that way you can take the off-road and then use it at the end of the race. Because I think being able to steal a race with them, like, it sucks, but at least give it some potential for baggers to have a chance to, like, steal placements. Like, again, I know people will give me a lot of hate for that. I'm playing devil's advocate, but I think it's at least more fair than letting them take Ocean View's full off-road section, right? And just stealing a race from going literally from the off-road all the way to the finish line practically. Like, I think it's 10 times more fair to be able to, like, go through the last section of the end and just zip past, rather than zipping past from off-road and then to the finish line, you know what I mean? Now, outside of the Kronos end cut, I really don't think there should be many other off-road spots that the drill and laser can take, because I think it'd just be way too powerful, and it has shown to be really powerful because you can just take the off-road and go straight to the end, like on Ocean View. Now, other than those changes for the speed items, let's go into the attack items, and I don't think the attack items have a lot of things that need to be changed. I think the ring damage that these items do provide is absolutely unreal, and the same thing goes with the slowdown. So let's get started with the gloves. So the gloves are really egregious for a couple reasons. The main reason the gloves are egregious is they do 50 rings of damage, and they can both target you. So in Mario Kart, you have the green shell and the red shell. The red shell is supposed to lock onto the person in front of you, whereas the green shell is supposed to be one that you actually have to aim and ricochet off the wall to hit people. In this game, it's kind of like that, but the green glove is actually able to lock onto the person in front of you as long as your reticle's been on them for, I think, about a half a second. So I feel like it's a problem because green gloves do 50 rings of damage, which, again, as I stated earlier, that is about 11 speed if you're at 100 rings and don't have any buffer or any way to lower the amount of ring damage you take, which is very ridiculous for one of the most common items in the game. I also think red gloves being able to do 50 rings of damage is a little egregious. I think maybe about 35 rings of damage would be fair for the red gloves, especially with how good they are at tracking. They can literally track around the wall, and they can track around so many different things. I've seen a clip where I saw red glove literally pick up off the ground because of a slope and literally go over top a racer and then hit the person in front of them. It was ridiculous. So I think for red gloves, lower the amount of ring damage and slowdown by 15 rings of damage, go put it to about 35 rings of damage, and then the slowdown should be reduced by like 15% because of how good their tracking is. It's ridiculous. Like, they literally are hitmen. You put a hit on someone, they are going for them no matter what's gonna stop them. Like, they will find a way to them unless you block it with an item. Green gloves, because they can lock on, I feel like these should do heavily reduced damage and slowdown. I think they should only do about 25 rings of damage if you lock on. If you don't lock on and ricochet off of a wall, I think they should do about 35 rings of damage, because then it takes more skill and you are attempting to, like, you're basically sacrificing consistent guaranteed damage for a little extra damage and a little extra slowdown. So I think that'd be a fair way to balance it, especially with the reticle. Now, granted, some people might find that stupid, but I think it's a good way to make green gloves actually have more skill expression than just hold the reticle on someone for half a second and then launch it and then hit them. Same thing goes with like point blank throws. I think it's super annoying with green gloves and red gloves especially. You lose 50 rings and you literally halt all momentum, everything, and then you have to regain it all back. I think it's one of the most annoying things in the game. So I think that those are my changes for the gloves. For the slicer, I don't think slicer really needs a change. I think the only change I would say with slicer is the fact that it should be pushed back. So instead of it spawning or directly off rip, I think maybe we'll give it about 10 seconds and then let it spawn. This would heavily favor Dark Chow start users, because the first item set is one of the most crucial ones, because if you get slicered right at the first item set, which I do constantly and I hate it, it does make Dark Chow bagging a lot easier and you can hold that Dark Chow for a lot longer. But I think it would at least prevent the situations where you get, at the very start of the race, like 4 people literally get slicered and they all come to a complete halt, and now everyone else just gets to drive away for the most part. It helps to at least alleviate one of those situations, or alleviate the situation where like 1 or 2 people get that slicer situation I was talking about. I know 4 is a little over exaggerated, but you get the idea. And for the slicer slowdown, I think it shouldn't slow you down for as much as it does. I think maybe about 15% less slowdown than it does currently would be pretty cool. Be very nice. Like, yeah, let it remove the item, but it shouldn't do nearly as much slowdown. That's what I'm thinking. Just like in the closed beta, because I remember watching it. I don't have a clip of it, unfortunately, but it would slow you down for much less, and it wouldn't take your item away. Or I think it would slow you down for the same amount, but it wouldn't take your item away. It's one of those two. It was pretty cool. Next, let's talk about the bomb. Bombs are one of the most problematic items of the game, especially level 1 bombs. Level 1 bombs are stupid. So here's the thing with level 1 bomb. Level 1 bomb does 50 rings of explosion damage no matter who clanks on it. So if you throw the bomb at someone point blank, you as the person that threw it is not going to take the damage, but everyone around that bomb radius is going to take it. And because the bomb's explosion has some active frames, you can actually get hit like very briefly immediately after it's been thrown. So you can literally have like 3 people take 50 rings of damage, and you can cause 150 rings of chaos to 3 different people. Like, it's stupid. I think the easiest way to fix bomb genuinely is leave level 3 bomb have the 50 rings of explosion damage and the 20 rings of crush damage. Maybe lower the duration of the crush effect, like I stated earlier, by about 10-15%. But for level 1 bomb, make it do about 20 rings of damage and about 50 to 40% slowdown, somewhere in that range. For level 2 bombs, make it do like 60 to 65% slowdown and make it do 35 rings of damage. And then for level 3, as I stated, make it do 50 rings of explosion damage and then the 20 crush, because if you're really good with bombs, you can actually get the crush and the explosion damage on top of someone. It's happened to me before, and you cause someone to lose 70 rings. It's ridiculous. Next, let's talk about slime, weights, and dark chow. These 3 items I think are perfectly fine for the most part. I think slime, dark chow, and weights are supposed to be anti-bag items for a few reasons. I think dark chow is really good for item manipulation. I think it's a fair item for the most part because it targets everybody, so everyone's getting a reroll, and it forces out like really good items like drill, laser, so you can help prevent like situations where people are just hard bagging drill, laser, monster truck, things of that nature. I think slime, same thing. I think slime's very fair for the most part. I think it's really annoying, but I think it's fair if you don't have a way to block it, like, or you do have a way to get like avoid it, then it's one thing. You can avoid dark chow, weights, and slime by using a speed item or using a defensive item. So if you didn't know that, that's something you can do. This is mainly for the people that don't play CrossWorlds. So other than that, I think they're fair items for the most part. I think weights are annoying because of how much slowdown they provide from crushing you, and they take your items away. But again, I think it's a necessary evil to prevent people from super hard bagging really god tier items. But again, level 4 does prevent all this, but we will get into the gadgets here in a bit. Finally, KBB. I think KBB is perfectly balanced. I think it's fine. We need to have some form of blue shell in the game. Again, I think level 4 does prevent these situations where KBB should really pop off and perform really well. But again, that is something we will go into here shortly. I think for the most part, the attack items have some balanced ones, but I think they also have some really egregious ones like the gloves and the bomb. But I think other than that, I think the attack items, for the most part, these are what I would change. I know some people would probably argue with me, be like, weight should be nerfed, slime should be nerfed, dark chow should be nerfed, but I think they are necessary evils for this game, especially with how good bagging currently is and how good the items currently are. If the items do get nerfed, I do see like slime can, instead of slime taking both your items, it only takes 1 item away from you instead of both your slots. I think that's perfectly fine. That would at least counterbalance the fact that items are a little bit weaker. And then dark chow, I think dark chow is fine the way it is. Everyone gets a reroll. It's not just one person that doesn't get the reroll. You can avoid the dark chow yourself if you're the one throwing it. If you have drill, laser, void wisp, tornado, shield, monster truck, and I think that's everything. But yeah, I think for the most part, the other attack items are pretty fair outside of gloves and the bombs. Anyways, now that we've talked about the items, let's talk about the gadgets. There are some gadgets that really need changes. I think there's some gadgets that are way too strong. I think there's some gadgets that are way too weak. I don't have enough time to go into every single gadget I want changed, but I'm going to pick a few of them that I would like to see changed and a few that I would like to see upgraded, things of that nature, especially because some gadgets feel like they're just inferior forms of others. So we'll do about maybe 5 or 6 gadgets and then we'll go from there. Anyways, let's get on to the gadgets, guys. So if you know anything about me as a player, you might know that I've talked about ring game boost builds before. So one of the first gadgets I would like to see changed genuinely is Speed Machine Kit. I think this kit it's so weird that Acceleration Character Kit is literally what this kit should have been. You should have gotten ring game boost 2 and Slipstream Bounty on this kit instead of it being, you have ring range up, you have ring game boost 1, and then you get 20 speed if you're using a speed machine, and you lose, I think it's 15 acceleration. Like, I don't think that's ever worth it. I really do think like this should have been what like Acceleration Character Kit having ring game boost 2, Slipstream Bounty, and mini ring thief. I think really should have been on this kit, but again, I digress. I think that's just my personal preference. I think the fact that this kit sucks so badly in comparison to Acceleration Character Kit is just, it's such a shame, genuinely. Next, I would like to talk about another specific gadget. I would like to talk about Ring Mercy. Now, I just had a video going over Ring Mercy, but one of the biggest things that I saw a lot of people talk about was how they would change Ring Mercy. I think one of the best ones was from Budendorf, which Budendorf had a really nice comment about this. I'm going to show it up right now. And this comment is specifically talking about how Ring Mercy would be a lot better with a chain of rings. And I fully agree with this. I think I talked to another commenter. If I find that comment, I'll throw it up here as well. But basically, instead of getting one single 10 ring, if you were able to get a string of 10 single rings, this would make Ring Mercy so much better to the point that it'd actually be very viable and very worth using. Maybe not very viable, but it would definitely be worth using, especially on ring game boost builds. If you needed some way to recover quickly, it'd be like a mini Omo Chow in a sense, right? And this is something I talked about with the 100 ring ring item, where if you got a chain of 10 rings instead of just one single 100 ring, it would make it so much better. I think that rings true here with Ring Mercy. I think that'd be a lot better for this gadget. I think it'd make it a lot more powerful overall. Next, let's talk about a gadget that everyone knows about, and that is Alt Charge. Now, Alt Charge is very broken for a lot of reasons, but I want to come at this with a different angle. So most people would be quick to say, hey, let's just completely nerf Alt Charge into the ground. Let's make sure that you can't even use it. I find that to be kind of a bad way to go about this. I think the way you should nerf Ultimate Charge is in a couple ways. I'm going to spitball a couple ideas, so if you hate one of them, hopefully one of the other ones might be better. So the first idea that I have with nerfing Alt Charge is genuinely making it to where if you were in the Alt Charge shield state, not the Alt Charge boost state specifically, the Alt Charge shield state. If you're in the Alt Charge shield state, I think your drift boost, like generation, should be reduced by about 50%, maybe a little bit more, maybe a little less. I don't know for sure. This is because you're usually always stacking this with Tech Drift, level 2, level 3 Quick Charge. This would prevent the situations where you permanently only chain level 4s and you're pretty much invincible the whole race, especially if you know what you're doing. Now, granted, this can be very annoying for a lot of like really good level 4 users, but I do think it would offset how powerful this combo of level 2, level 3 Alt Charge and Tech Drift really is. Now, granted, there is counterplay to Alt Charge if you know what you're doing, but I think this would at least help mitigate some of that. The next change I would like to provide is, instead of having the shield duration of Alt Charge last 3 total seconds, I really do think Alt Charge should only have about a 1.5 second window of shield. This is because I think this is specifically more fair, because you have to time your level 4 usage way better, and the really good Alt Charge users know when to time their level 4s, so this wouldn't really affect them. But for people that are just using level 4, just use level 4 because they don't want to get hit, this would punish them because they haven't perfected their lines or anything like that, and it'd make Alt Charge a lot harder to get good at, but it would show off way more skill expression. I think it'd be way more enjoyable to go against personally. I don't know if those two changes are the best, but I think those two would at least be a little more fair for players, and I think it'd also be more skill expressive for the better players as well, and people would actually find Alt Charge to be a little more balanced. Now, if all the item changes I talked about were to go through, I think the devs would have to take a more serious approach with nerfing level 4 if the items were to be more balanced, but I think for the time being, if the items don't get changed and they do nerf level 4, I think reducing the time level 4 is up by 1.5 seconds, I think it's a very fair way to go about it, and it makes it so that way the good players have to time the level 4 usage rather than just be able to be in the level 4 shield state all throughout the race. Another gadget that's in the drift category I'd like to see change is actually level 1 Quick Charge. I don't understand why level 1 Quick Charge requires 2 slots rather than level 2 Quick Charge requiring 2 slots. I think level 2 Quick Charge should technically cost 2 slots of space, not level 1 Quick Charge. This to me is kind of stupid. I don't understand why the devs did this, but whatever. It is what it is, you know what I mean? And then finally, for the last gadget that I actually would like to see changed, again, I can't go over everything, guys, so I'm only going over a select few. Spin Drift, honestly. This is one of the changes I actually talked about on stream. I think Spin Drift, getting a reflector property when you're in the maximum spin state, which means you have orange and blue particles spinning around you when you're in max spin, which I will show you guys that here on screen in a second. Basically, when you're in the max Spin Drift state, you see how when you're charging, you get these blue and orange particles, right? That's when you know you're in the max spin state, because like if you spin in not the max spin state, it takes a while, but if you're in full drift state, you see how you get that blue particle? I think that blue and orange particle effect that you get should signify like, hey, you're in the maximum state of spin drift, you're spinning as fast as you can. I think once you see that blue spin, that should be like, hey, you're allowed to reflect items. I think you should be allowed to reflect bombs, gloves, not maybe slicer, but gloves, bombs, and slime. I think those are the only items you should be allowed to reflect when you're in the maximum spin state. It's gonna be like a mini tornado. And then the other thing I would like to see is with maximum spin state, potentially make it to where the knockback of the machines is much higher, depending on your vehicle's power. So if you have more power, the spin drift knockback is actually higher, but if you have lower power, it's gonna be about what it is currently. I think that'd be personally really cool. It wouldn't make the gadget super broken, but it would bring some viability into mine and allow people to actually build sets with the spin drift. I think that would be absolutely amazing. Anyways, now that we've talked about some gadgets I would like to see change, let's talk about some map changes I would like to see. Now, there's some tracks that I think need to have some changes. Now, there are tracks that I think are perfectly fine, which is a good majority of them, in my opinion, because I like a lot of the tracks, but there's some tracks like Colorful Mall and Ocean View that have quote-unquote shortcuts that are completely useless, and then there's some tracks like Radical Highway and East Stadium that have fundamental issues with them. So, we're going to first start off with Ocean View. Ocean View has a Lap 3 specific shortcut, just like Colorful Mall, just like Aqua Forest, that you have to take, and instead of being a actual shortcut, instead it basically puts you on an alt path that gives you a blue box, which is pretty bad. Now, we'll go to Colorful Mall. Colorful Mall, same thing. On Lap 3 specifically, you can take this curve, get a blue box right here, but it's so much slower than just taking a normal path. We'll go to Aqua Forest. Aqua Forest. Now, you may have seen a lot of people do this, but when you take this top path, it's faster, but instead of jumping into this orange ring, you just fall off to the left, and it's way quicker. Wonder Museum's ult path is completely unnecessary. I don't know why you would ever take this, even for the rings and the dash panels. It's just so much slower as seen here. We'll go to Skyroad. Skyroad has a two-part shortcut. The second part is very risky, and even if you do take it perfectly, it is much slower than just taking the normal path. Like as you see, I'm flying off into the abyss. Steampunk City has a shortcut on an ult path as well that puts you in the flight earlier, but it really doesn't help. It's not that useful by any means at all. And then when it comes to fundamental issues, there are a bunch of tracks that have fundamental issues. Bikini Bottom's jellyfish are very hard for people to get a grasp on. They're really annoying. East Stadium has the tightrope on lap 3, which is really stupid. You get desynced off very easily. Radical Highway is the cable section where you can have a lot of issues occur very, very easily. And in general, I would really just love to see all these maps changed in some way or another. So like, I'd like to see on East Stadium Radical Highway those tighter sections be widened out just a little bit to make it easier to land on them so you don't have bugs occur. On Bikini Bottom, I'd like to see the jellyfish section just be one single jump rather than the hit like, oh, a certain speed cap, get a level 2 drift off, whatever. Urban Canyon, I wish the Urban Canyon shortcuts were a little more beginner friendly, genuinely. Like, I don't mind the fact that you have to snap drift them to take them optimally, but I would like to see them a little bit easier to take instead of having them be, oh, lap 3, you have to be just a god to take them super well. Like, I would like to see some changes on that, make it a little bit easier for players. Kraken Bay, a lot of these alternate paths are significantly slower than just going in the water section twice. There's no reason. It's fundamentally a problem. They're not even worth going on, genuinely. North Star has a major fundamental issue where you have to have a speed item pretty much to win this race. I think it's stupid. Corktown has the Coral Cut, which, again, it's really cool, but it is a fundamental issue of the track that should technically be fixed, but I don't want them to fix it personally because I think it's super sick. And then for the useless shortcuts, I would just like to see these quote-unquote shortcuts actually become legitimate shortcuts. Like, I don't want to have a blue box on a quote-unquote cut. It's just not beneficial. It does not help me, and it doesn't benefit me in any way because 9 times out of 10, you get screwed on those boxes. Anyways, let's go on to the last part, which is going to be other gameplay changes that I would like to see in the game. Again, I'm sorry this has dragged on for quite a while, but now that we got done with the maps, let's go into the other gameplay changes I would like to see. Alright guys, to finish this off, let's talk about the gameplay changes I would like to see. So there's a few changes I would like to see, but there's one change I particularly want to see. So in terms of changes I would like to see specifically the indicator get buffed and fixed, because there are times when the indicator just blatantly doesn't tell you problems coming your way. Like with bombs, for instance, right? The only indication you have is literally hearing it tick and roll around. Then you have gloves that are targeting someone else, but they get really close to you. I feel like that would be really nice for the indicator to tell you about. Because the indicator really only tells you if something's locked onto you. It never tells you if an item is like directly behind you. Like if a red glove is targeting someone in front of you, the fact that the indicator doesn't tell you that it's right there makes it way more dangerous and makes it way more problematic to actually play the game in general. I feel like changing the indicator to be able to highlight like items that are getting within a certain proximity to you, even if they're not targeting you, would be super nice for the game and make the item play so much more enjoyable. Next, slipstreaming. Slipstreaming itself has been heavily exacerbated due to Legend Comp Round 2. We're seeing it be more problematic than ever because in Round 2 of Legend Comp, all the best gadgets are banned. This means that slipstreaming off of one another is one of the best ways to play the game, and also heavy bagging. I think genuinely, if slipstreaming got a little bit of a speed nerf, or if it got changed to be like how Mario Kart Wii does it, where you have to be behind someone for a set period of time and then you get the slipstream boost, I think that would be 2 really good ways to change slipstream. It'd make it a lot more healthy and make it a lot more fun to utilize and be a lot more fun in general. This would probably come at the cost of some people getting tilted about that and getting upset, which I understand that, but I think this change would be a little more healthy for the game than the way it's currently implemented. Finally, the last gameplay change I would really like to see is item trailing. You might be wondering, Destello, what are you talking about if you've never played a Mario Kart game? And if you have played a Mario Kart game, you might be wondering, Destello, what are you talking about? So let's talk about this. So in Mario Kart, holding your item button down allows you to trail certain items. This means you can trail items such as shell, banana, bomb, things of that nature, right? In Sonic Racing CrossWorlds, you cannot trail any items. This, I would say, is one of the worst things about CrossWorlds compared to Mario Kart, genuinely. I think the fact that you're able to trail items in Mario Kart but not in Sonic Racing CrossWorlds, I think is such a big problem because the items in CrossWorlds feel like twice as strong as Mario Kart, and I feel like having a way to defend yourself on demand without having to literally like completely destroy your line just to defend yourself against an item, or you have an item coming at you from a weird angle that's impossible to defend from, I feel like item trailing would solve a lot of these problems. Now granted, we might have a double dash situation where we get an item literally coming at us from like an 85-degree angle and hit us regardless, but I would rather have the chance of defending from an item more times than not, because defending against an item by throwing it backwards, it's semi-reliant at best in some situations and almost near impossible to do on turns, and you have to completely spin out in order to do it, and I think that sucks. And there are times even when you throw an item back, like the slicer, if the slicer latches onto you during a certain frame, you can throw an item back and it clanks on the slicer anyways, but it doesn't break it, and I've had that happen. If I have footage, I'll show it right now. But it is very, very annoying, and I hate it so much. I feel like item trailing would literally salvage so many problems with the items in the game, and I think a lot of people really enjoy the fact that the items would be less problematic. The items can be as strong as they are now if people really really don't care about them that much, especially if item trailing would be that nice, which in my opinion, I think if the item trailing was in the game and the items were as strong as they were, I think item trailing would actually be a lot better than just nerfing the items outright. I still think some items should do less ring damage overall, but item trailing would solve a lot of the problems that are currently present in the game. Now guys, this has been my change list that I would like to see from the current state of CrossWorlds. I know this is through the lens of me playing round 2 of Legend Comp and also through playing World Match. Hopefully a lot of these changes resonate well with you guys, because a lot of these changes for me would be very nice to have. I genuinely think some of these changes that I did provide aren't the best, and I think some of them could be a lot better, but I'm a very relaxed person, I'm very laid back, so a lot of these changes for me at least would be a very nice median for my taste, even if they aren't the best overall. I would like some changes, but I know not everything's going to happen. I know SEGA may not even change anything at all, but if SEGA does end up deciding to change some of these things, like the items, the maps, or even just adding item trailing to the game, holy, this game would go from good to amazing real quick. Anyways guys, that's going to be it for the video. Thank you so much for voting on the poll. I will be working on the next video here shortly. I don't know which one we're going to do. I might just go through the poll and just go down the list of who has the second most votes and go from there. Anyways guys, if you have any suggestions for the next video, go right ahead and comment them down below. If you have any changes you would like to suggest based on what I've provided, or if you think some of the changes I've provided are bad, please comment down below. I would like to not only learn from you guys, but I would also like to learn what changes of mine do you guys think are pretty bad, because that in my mind will at least allow me to not only have a good conversation with you guys, but it will also help me to improve as a player overall and fundamentally improve my knowledge as an individual as well. Thank you so much for watching guys. Have yourselves a great one. Hey guys, sorry about this being at the very tail end of the video about what I would change about the vehicles. I'm gonna be honest, I don't think any of the vehicles really need changes. I think the only vehicle class that needs changes are the acceleration vehicles and maybe the speed vehicles, and the way I would change them would be just for speed and acceleration, just give them both like 5 to 10 more points of boost, like flat, legitimately, like bring them in line with other vehicles, because speed is a status too weak to use on its own, and it's very prevalent with E-gear, right? Like E-gears don't have the highest speed, but yet you always see these vehicles front running, and that's just because of the boost stat, being able to get so many level 3s off and level 2s off consistently. It makes it impossible to catch up because you can stack them and all that sort of stuff. With speed vehicles and primarily acceleration vehicles, you can't stack boost. It's very, very hard to do so, and there's just nothing about these vehicles that stand them out. Like, they have nothing going for them. Like, I would say give these vehicles like extended slipstream, give them something, give them anything, give them like runoff bounty, give them anything built into their kit to make them more viable, and I think it would be so much better. Anyways guys, sorry about this being at the very tail end of the video. I just, like I said, my power went out multiple times during the recording and editing process. I just got fed up with it, and all my footage of my acceleration vehicle talking and all the other vehicle talking got corrupted, so I was unable to utilize it at all. But anyways, just to sum it up, acceleration vehicles need a nice buff. Give them more boost, give them a runoff bounty, give them extended slipstream built in, something like that. Like, give them something that makes them viable. Give speed vehicles maybe like 5 points more boost as well. Give them anything else. Like, I feel like they could really utilize that 5 extra points of boost. Like, even just having a vehicle like this be up to 50 boost makes a huge difference. It feels a lot more consistent. It feels better overall. Anyways, that's all I got for you guys. Sorry about that. Have yourselves a great one. Hey, Impact, when it comes to like, that guy has monster truck starter. Uh-oh. Am I gonna get brake checked? Oh no. You know what? Yeah, you know what, King, you go. There's another one! What?